There are people who put AI to work and people that AI will put out of work. The Boss Mode Podcast is the ones who choose to be the boss.
Welcome back to the Boss Mode Podcast. You've got the originals, the OGs, Dee Deng and David Lee.
What's happening? What's happening?
Good to see you again. It's been it's been a few minutes since we hopped on the pod together.
It sure has. Claude's been Anthropic's been busy.
Yeah, I saw a post. Somebody listed Anthropic's launches, and they half jokingly included the neutering of the hamstringing of Anthropic and their amount of tokens, or the thinking ability of Claude for a little while, as well as the leak of Claude code. But joking aside, like Anthropic has absolutely been on a tear, releasing valuable feature after valuable feature. They're really on the edge.
Oh man, Claude design, Claude routines.
But then Google stole Anthropic's thunder on the design front by open sourcing DesignMD.
Yeah, which they're just.
I think was a good move.
I fully welcome this one-upmanship that is happening.
We're the beneficiaries of it.
Absolutely.
And you look at how expensive scaled intelligence has always been. And when I say scaled intelligence, traditionally there were two vectors available to people for scaling their intelligence. One was get smarter yourself, and so that I'm smarter. Then two was tap into other people around me and put them to work as my agents towards a goal, and just benefit from their intelligence. Have them trade their intelligence and their time for money, or for hope, or for glory, but there was some trade that took place in order to get that more scalable version of arguably more scalable version of intelligence. Because as much as you want to learn yourself as an individual, you could go super deep and go like Stephen Hawking, right? Go all Einstein or Feynman and just get really, really smart in that one area. But then you realize, holy shit, there's all this infinite variability around me, and going deep into one domain just isn't enough. And how then do you go deep enough in all the other domains? And traditionally that answer has been you persuade other people to work with you cross-functionally. But today, because of all this one-upmanship, as you described it, intelligence is available. What you used to say for $20 a month, ChatGPT subscription. You've got some intelligence there.
For sure. Or even just Claude Pro is still $20 a month. Yeah, Claude Pro is still $20 a month. And we're at that place also where tool calling is available too. So it's not as though it's purely an informational thing, the actual doing of stuff. And I was just reflecting on this the other day, the extent of the tool calls. I remember the days pre-MCP, or where it was just a bunch of APIs, you got to know how to wire stuff up. And then MCP came along, and it confused even people like me. I'm like, what the hell is, and everyone tried to use the USB-C analogy, and I'm going, so what, it charges my AI? Like, what is that? And then it went straight into, the on-ramp for mass market became much smoother also. So you got Claude Desktop. All you got to do is hit connectors. That's language I can understand. Yep. It connects to my Gmail.
Microsoft Word.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yep. And now it's getting to this place where even when you compare Claude design with which is a designing of a static, and even inside of Claude itself, just get it to even animate what was designed. Yeah. So it really is getting to a place where it's no longer just novel, simple tasks that are we'll just replace your rote work, right? So that you can work on higher leverage stuff. It really is moving into that other realm as well. Sure, a bunch of people were complaining about how Anthropic nerfed itself. And I remember, I think it was a few days ago, where Anthropic put out a release to say, we found out why it seemed nerfed. It was a bug because we tried to shorten system prompts to just 10 words only, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. I don't think it was by design.
Sure.
I think there are other things they've done that's not to say that these guys are benevolent beings, right? They're not like a benevolent deity. But this particular nerfing of Claude, I don't think was by design. I think certainly there were other things, such as like holding back mythos. That was not done purely for the better angel in them. Part of that was real cash flow constraints and access to compute constraints. But another part of it is And Chamath has been talking about this on the All In podcast for probably 6 months now. And so credit to him. He's been talking about how Silicon Valley has had this image problem when it came to AI. And you and I touched upon this just a couple of weeks ago when we talked about the PR problem that AI has in the United States. In the US, 26% of people are favorable towards AI. That means like over 70% are not favorable towards AI. And it's very likely the inverse in China. And it's certainly roughly the inverse in South Korea. And what does this do? It changes people's like top of funnel opportunity to benefit from AI. And that's problematic when we are so disconnected from normal human beings that we describe AI in these terms that put people at odds or has people putting up their guard against the use of AI. Now, another part of it is I think the US has had this like romantic notion about the working man, the middle class, the blue collar and all this. And I think that there was some opposition to automation or some pride in that kind of work that had folks kind of opposed the idea of AI. And another dimension of it is that the US has been so far removed from knowing actual hunger for multiple generations. When I say actual hunger, I mean like truly starving families.
Right. Like physical hunger.
Yeah. That people are a little bit more about, hey, protecting what I have versus being hungry to go out there and get more just as a matter of instinct.
Yeah. That said, though, amount of engagement on social, whenever an AI creator talks about AI, the engagement is through the roof. If there's any time, or rather, if someone wants to be a creator and get engagement, talking about AI is a surefire way right now to grow an audience, especially if it's a field that genuinely interests them. And because it evolves so quickly, a creator can simply be a newscaster about AI, not necessarily even an expert in the field, to go, hey, this one thing dropped this week. Here's some really interesting things that it can do. And that type of post, and to the point where you can go, here's some really interesting things that it can do. Comment this if you want to get a link to find out what it can do. Not even a demo, not even a...
Yeah. And that points to a deeper problem, I think, because I don't think that there's any truly additive, like they're not creating new value when they do those things. And I get that influencers like that are getting views, they're getting engagement, but that speaks to a deeper illness in society where folks aren't actually interested in really getting smarter, really learning, really having original thoughts. They're just looking for that short-term. A lot of folks are looking for that short-term dopamine hit that makes them feel it's performative learning, performative curiosity.
Sure. I'm not as mad about it, only because, one, it provides me with, and I'm sure it provides all of the various marketers at AI companies, it gives them a read of where the market is at. So, it's data, first of all. And secondly, to address the whole 26% of the populace are curious or interested in AI, they are providing in a way, a net benefit of exposing all these different tools to the mass populace, to the
so it's like a discovery mechanism.
Right, exactly. It is a discovery mechanism where a 20-something-year-old, or even some, across all age bands, a consumer on social media is just like minding their own business, scrolling on social with their own, just trying to fill time or have some escapism, whatever it might be. And a post shows up about, hey, this Claude thing can now edit videos for you. Ooh, that might pique some curiosity and prompt some random person to go in and actually try it for the first time and get themselves to a place where, I mean, heck, that was how I got sucked into all this. Not necessarily, I don't scroll socials, but just even being on LinkedIn and seeing various posts about use cases, and I'll go, hey, you know what? Yes, I will download your template and I'll tinker around with it. I know it doesn't, 70 to 80% of the templates don't work anyway because it's a rip of a rip of a rip. But the fact that it didn't work was the thing that allowed me to go, let me figure out how this think can actually work.
So I guess from a different direction, this is commentary on, is short form video and the algorithm good or bad? And I think that, so I think that Musk describes short form video as like the single worst technology or innovation that has been developed.
Says the guy who owns a short form text platform.
Right. And I used to think the same of tweets and X, but here's my thinking now on short form video as well as X. And part of it builds on what you were sharing about it. It creates this important discovery mechanism. And let's set technology aside. Let's just talk about a group of friends that get together. Maybe it's daily, maybe it's weekly, maybe it's monthly, or whatever it may be. It's just, hey, did you hear about that thing that happened? That's what these short form videos are doing. And there's utility in that. There's good in that. And especially when you layer in, for X in particular, and I really like where X went post Elon because of community notes and less kind of opinionated filtering of content, less human curated, or small cabal of people curating what the rest of us will consume. I think that the community notes approach is very healthy because there is a degree of choosing who is able to participate in community notes, but really they're given incredible latitude in their ability to call something out. I saw something about a guy who posted a video of a guy that works at Anthropic, and in this Anthropic talk, it was a legitimate talk from a guy at Anthropic talking about how he vibe coded 20 features in a single day, right? And what the actual limitations of vibe coding are. And so he was very honest about that. Like there was a bit of a clickbaity headline or hook at the beginning of his talk, but that's normal. In the community notes, though, somebody flagged that the original poster said that the OP described this Anthropic employee as the head of Claude Code. And the community notes just said, hey, that's not the head of Claude Code. Wasn't disputing the substance of what was being shared, but it's just these small corrections, because you think about that circle of kids sitting on the carpet and you play telephone, you whisper something into the kid's ear next to you, and then they whisper and you go around in a circle. You might start with apple and you end up with elephant, right? It's these small, you need course corrections. And I think community notes is an important mechanism to do that at the innocent side, but on the kind of defense against evil actors, it creates an important social mechanism to prevent the distribution of misinformation.
Yeah, for sure. And who better to do it than a bunch of humans who can get incensed by one wrong fact? You know, AI wouldn't be doing that type of stuff. I mean, just looking at Reddit. Reddit's if you look at the Claude AI subreddit, it is a very fascinating place, because you've got your tinfoil hatters who just go up in arms and they go, my God, it's finally here. Claude is nerfing all of us. This is the dumbest thing ever. Just one giant cash grab. And then you've got the others who jump in and go like, calm down, everyone. You know, like, this is not, we're paying $200 or $100 or $20 for something that really should be costing a lot more. Everything is heavily subsidized at this point right now.
Oh, absolutely. It's insanely subsidized. And I think that $20 plan, it's enough to get a really good taste, like to go just deep enough. And the $100 plan, it's enough to go deeper, of course, just rationally, but then the sweet spot where you get this incredible amount of value, that $200 a month plan from Anthropic right now, it's just tremendously, you can do so much damage with that. You do so much good with that X Claude Max plan. So for those who walk themselves towards that point, I strongly recommend it. And some folks are saying that it's been nerfed, or like the rate limits have become so terrible on even Claude Max 20X. And to that, I would say that there's a spectrum of expertise in the use of AI. At the entry level stage, you've got the folks who just don't know what they're doing. They're just saying, hey, Claude, build me an app that will make me $1 billion.
Make no mistakes.
Of course, you're going to run out of and make no mistakes. Of course, you're going to burn all your tokens, even on Claude Max, because it's going to start working. And then you're going to start arguing with it, saying, "I told you $1 billion, not $100 million." And then What's wrong with you? Don't you know your math? And there's a real big difference in quality of life when you're a billionaire versus a 100-millionaire. Yeah, you're going to burn your tokens and you're probably not going to get a lot of sleep. On the other end, you've got folks at this end over here, you've got folks that are experts in thinking in systems. They are able to set an ambitious goal, think about the system to achieve that goal, even if it's like a system in terms of like in human team terms, like I need this guy to do this kind of work. I need another guy to be doing the artwork. I need somebody else to be like manning the barbecue, or it's setting things up in that configuration and then describing it in a way that AI will then do the work. And then you can spawn sub-agents and create agent teams and all that stuff. Those guys will absolutely be able to burn through a Claude Max 20x subscription very quickly. In the middle, I don't think so. I think that if you're smart enough in the use of AI and you're not like this tremendous systems thinker and you're not spending like 18 hours a day in front of Claude, you're probably not going to burn through all of those 20x tokens. For most people, I think it's a really, really good deal, that $100 and $200 tier.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, and there's always plan mode, right? So even if you're not a great systems thinker or you understand the basics of it, but when it comes to, say, for example, systems and code, you might not be familiar or fluent in that type of language. If you just jump into plan mode, it becomes this great thing, like thought partner to go, hey, I need to scope this thing out. Let's scope this thing out and figure out what the phases are and all that type of stuff. And I guess the hurdle to cross, and you know, I think for most, if you jump in and if you're kind of green like me, or you were kind of green like me, and you get less green across time, you learn the context management lesson quite quickly.
Yeah.
You know, when you're starting to do stuff and you're going, wait a second, what the heck is going on? And I, for one, have definitely found myself swinging too far the other way, where I was almost oversensitive of my context, and I was, you know, just checking context like every single time. How much is left? Should I do a compression now? And all that type of stuff. But it absolutely is a thing. Speaking of Claude $20 plan, no more Claude code in the $20 plan as of this week.
Did that go away and then come back? I thought it came back.
Wow. So they
reneged
reneged it?
Backlash. Yeah, and then they brought it back. You know, here's the thing about Anthropic. They're so far ahead, but they still face a lot of competitive pressure. But two, they're unique among the foundation models in that Anthropic Claude itself needs to make money. So you look at OpenAI, they have enough cash that they can burn, baby, burn. And they do. And the amount of subsidization they do is next level. So they cost a lot less than Anthropic Claude. You look at Gemini, and Gemini is Google. Google has so much cash on the balance sheet that, and there are other tech companies that have a lot of cash as well. So this isn't unique to Google. It's just that among the companies that have built a full stack AI strategy that are truly competing at the foundation model, at the edge model level, Google is unique among big tech. And they have enough money on their balance sheet that they can fund everything. So the amount of subsidization is like next level beyond ChatGPT, even though it costs them a lot less because they're the hyperscalers. They have all of the compute. They have the chips. They have access to, like, they have nation state ability to move energy, like acquire the energy they require. So I think Google is different in that way. So you've got these three tiers of companies, and Elon is probably somewhere in between an OpenAI and a Google. He'll have emergent full stack capabilities, I think, that will eventually be next level because, as we've discussed previously on the pod, he's going to put data centers up in space where cooling is not an issue, where politics is less of an issue, where NIMBYism is less of an issue, because there's nobody up there to say, hey, not in my backyard.
Yeah,
like
totally.
he'll be able to scale data centers faster than anybody else with the automation technology as well. So I think that Anthropic, let's go back to them, they're so different because they have to be profitable. So they have to try to push the envelope a little bit in terms of saying, hey, we're going to charge more for this. Or in this subscription tier, which even at Anthropic's prices is heavily subsidized, it's hard for us to afford to provide that for free. We need to create more of an upgrade path to get you to that $100 a month subscription, $200 a month subscription. Anthropic needs to do that. And I think we're going to continue seeing more of Anthropic do some of these cash grabs. But keep in mind that at this point, because of the competitive pressures they face, it's enough competitive pressure that Anthropic won't become like God mode abusive, like malevolent God mode. That's not happening with Anthropic anytime soon, I think. I don't think they have the leverage to do that. They don't have the juice for it.
Yeah. It's again going back to that whole one-upmanship and arms race. What's really fascinating to see and reflect on is just the nature of conversation that's happening in the zeitgeist as well. And there's a lot less. My sense, at least, and what I get to be exposed to, I notice a dramatic decrease in doomerism relative to 6 months ago or a year ago, where this whole AI doomerism was like, oh my God, it's going to come in and take our jobs and all that type of stuff. It seems like there is, because of Claude dropping all of these features, I genuinely, when I saw it happening, the reflex thought in my head was, well, here comes the doomerism. Here comes all the people that are saying like, video editors are going to lose their jobs and designers are going to lose their jobs and this, that, and the other. But instead, what I noticed was almost like a frothiness in the market, or at least in the social sphere, of people just wanting to get their hands on it. Perhaps it's the what do they call it? The 5 stages of grief. You've got the 5 stages of doomerism. Maybe it's like people are shifting, or the market is shifting to one of, well, I'm not going to resist this. I'm just going to lean in and be one of the few people to figure it out and to be wielding these tools so that I can survive whatever could be coming down the pike, possibly.
Well, I don't know that it needs to be few people. And I think that's, for me personally, that's one of the motivations behind doing this podcast and all of the work that I do at targeting different levels of buyer with AI. And the fundamental idea is that if we all unlock boss mode, if we all put others' labor and intelligence to work, whether they are human or AI, if we all develop that boss mode instinct and capability and expertise, then we're going to be fine. And the challenge is, traditionally, because if labor needed to come in intelligence, the truly scalable vector was acquiring the intelligence and working through the intelligence and labor of other people, other human beings. That meant that the people at the top needed to be few and the people at the bottom needed to be many, always. And the key difference here is that today it's no longer intelligence restricted to people, and therefore types of intelligence are no longer restricted to people. So you don't need a lot of people in the middle or the bottom. You can have a lot of people at the top. You can have everybody at the top. The only barrier to that, barring like a locking down of the capable models, and like, let's say that the normal state of play is things like Mythos not being released to everybody, then you end up in a place where intelligence is for the elites, the 0.1%. But barring that, we can have everybody have something akin to like directionally infinite intelligence, infinite wealth, infinite prosperity.
And do you think that it is challenging for most human minds to envision such a reality, because history has shown us that human society has been incapable of a non-hierarchical, few at the top, many at the bottom structure?
Excuse me. Yes, I think that it's really hard for the reason you just described. Throughout history, that has been the case, where the ability to put, the ability to direct or be the boss of labor and intelligence was limited to the very, very few. And that has always been the case. It has been your industrialists, it has been your kings, it has been your serf, or your nobles. And that's, yeah, it's probably genetically encoded in us, even like it's genetic knowledge, probably, where people are born almost into an instinctive complacency, into an instinctive of the even just increased likelihood of living in that way. I would like to think, though, that that's like the potential genetic side of it is small enough. I'm a nurture over nature believer in most things. I think that nature plays a really big role in a lot of things, at least subconsciously. Like it's there in our bodies. But I believe that the bigger issue is actually nurture. The bigger thing that's shackling us in this slavery of the mind is what society is telling us, the
Yeah.
lies that have been perpetuated.
Yeah.
And society has trained these students to just be receptacles for the commands and instruct.
Yeah. And I guess that's the I'm glad that you're agreeing, because that's where my mind goes as well, which is if you don't happen to live, say for example, even if you lived in the Amazon, you still have the elders and you have the youngins who have to ladder their way up towards the elders. And in some of those societies, it's pretty much age. It's capability and age. You could be young and a young buck and all that, but if you're not at that age, you're not an elder, you don't sit high up in that hierarchy. If you live in the developed world where the education system is the one that we're going through right now, there also is that hierarchy. Teacher speaks, you listen, end of story. For the most part, teacher gets to elect when you get to voice your opinion, and then teacher gets to elect when no more. Time for stuff to go the other way. So across time, it has always been that hierarchical, that very common, that very common refrain, which is someone needs to go do something about this. The government needs to go do something about this, right? My local statesperson or council person needs to do something about this.
Yeah. And
that has been so
the
ingrained.
mental slavery mindset.
That's what I mean.
The mindset of mental slavery.
And absolutely that whole ingrainedness of, because those are the signals that the environment has been sending to us. And us as humans, we're survival machines. So we try to find the optimal way to survive and then hopefully thrive in whatever environment that we're in. And there are still powers that be. And there are then, I guess, the few that would go, wait, could I put my hand up to be one of the powers that be? And those are the ones that tend to get ostracized or at least ridiculed and made fun of, be like, come on, man, you're just a regular dude. Like, what are you doing trying to start a $1 billion company, Mr. Capable over here? So there's so many signals there, which is why it's fascinating to have this discussion, because nurture it almost turns it to, for I would say the majority of the populace, to fact, like physics, that there are powers that be, and I am not one of those powers that be.
And that is so disempowering. That is, to be human, I say, is to create, right? But let's start kind of going deeper and deeper into the idea of the most human versions of ourselves. And I think that one important dimension that should be considered is the idea of agency, the idea of empowerment. We can and should be increasingly empowered. We can and should have increased agency. We can and should design society in a way where individuals are more capable intellectually, physically. We can and should design society in a way that expects people to be more capable. And I think that through the use of AI, what is being awakened is this realization that the majority of people need not be downtrodden, used, economically coerced into being the pawns of the powers that be. You, every single one of you, can be your own boss, can be the boss of other agents, at minimum AI agents. It's affordable, it's easy, it's there. And that's just a different world order. I think it's a better world order.
Yeah, absolutely. I wonder if we'll arrive in this lifetime, even with the availability of those tools, because
I'm certain it will for more people than ever before, at minimum. Ideally, and this is the techno-optimist in me, ideally we get to everybody being in this place, but that's going to require more than technology. It's going to require a change in the way we educate our children. And if that happens, I think that we can be in a place where it's 90% of humans are putting agents to work. 90% of humans have agency that extends beyond the traditional idea of self. I think that realistically, we're probably, like, even if we can get to 20% of humans, 10% of humans having 100x greater agency, I think we're in a much better world. We're probably at something like, 2% of humans have a semblance of real agency? It's probably sub 1% of humans really have agency. And that's effectively what I just said, is that 99% of humans or more are trapped in imagined slavery, and only 1% have the agency to really be free. And for a long time, we've been kind of chipping away at what is human in our children to the point that by the time they are adults, they say, hey, this is just what it means to be an adult. This is, you got to play by the rules. You got to know your place, kid. You got to earn your stripes. You got to work your way up and just listen to the man. Outdated thinking. You don't need to only listen to the man. And that's not to say that you should discount the wisdom of others. Let's get real here. We should try to learn from each other and with each other and through each other. That's, again, the idea of agency. Like if I'm truly going to have real agency, I also need the skill of putting other agents to work, human and otherwise. And part of that is in my learning endeavors as well. But this is, I think, the single most important thing. And that's really the idea behind Vanka, the idea that putting AI to work is something that many people can do. We were tremendously ambitious about it, and we're focusing heavily on just financial operations now. We have a very small group of folks who are benefiting from it now, and we'll start expanding that out to a broader group as we go from financial operations to customer support to what people traditionally characterize as marketing. I'd like to start characterizing as sharing truths. And eventually, I have to believe that, at least in the commercial sense, individuals and small teams will be much more empowered to compete with large companies. But separately, I think that there's a very big enterprise opportunity. And I think that that's probably the pie is going to be shrinking, because I think that the small and medium-sized teams will be where it's really at. That's where the real growth is. I think that empowering the individual as a person, now that's a really exciting domain of AI. And that, in my mind, is the single biggest opportunity with AI, because we need to do a better job of helping people feel more empowered, as we've just been discussing, because to fail there means we'll have more of the evil that happened. Was it just last week? Let's talk attempted murder. I've disagreed with a number of things that I've heard Sam Altman say, right? I don't know Sam Altman. My agreements with and disagreements with Sam Altman are only through what I read in public. And somebody said something really smart recently. It was Jeff Bezos. He was saying it in a little bit of a goofy way. He was saying, what you know from what you see in public about another person is rarely, or even it's impossible that it would be, a true reflection of that person. I think that ideally we get to a point where that's less true, but today I'd say that's very, very true. And so any disagreement I have with Sam Altman should be loosely held. I should have loosely held convictions, because maybe I just misunderstood. I haven't spoken with the guy at length, certainly, or at all. So I really don't have violently held convictions. And this is really, really important, because most people get their information, instead of getting it from a primary source and through true dialogue and discourse, they're getting it from third parties. And so now you've got this guy. I think there were probably 2 attempts on his life recently. And I think that this is just pure evil that stems from ignorance and lack of agency. The amount of fear, anger that comes from a person who feels hopeless. It's something that we need to genuinely work on as a society, instead of this credentialing focus. He threw a Molotov cocktail into towards Sam Altman's home.
20-year-old. Wow.
It's terrible, man. That's just not okay. As angry as you might be with the guy, as much as you might disagree with what you heard in public about the guy, you have no right, no privilege to be resorting to that kind of violence. That's not anything remotely resembling justice. So I just think that everything that we were discussing just now about empowerment and agency, we need to do a much better job of. It's easy to say it's about PR. It's about doing a better job of putting AI in a positive light, but that just leads to more corporate talk. That just leads to more shades of truth instead of more full truths. Because you've got, we've mentioned this a few times, how David Sachs on the All In podcast has been parroting kind of high level employment figures, which are net employment figures, and discounting the hiring rates and things like that. And I think recently you've got some folks, there's a VC who's talking about how There is an increase in hiring of a 5% increase year over year in hiring college grads. Well, I'm sorry, that's not really saying much. Like it leads to people spinning things and trying to misrepresent. And like, I think that if we take a deeper, fuller, more honest view of it, instead of and Sachs's argument is that there's the logical, forward-looking view of employment, and then there is the current reality where there is a net increase in jobs in the United States. And sure, but you're kind of cherry picking facts here, because you do have a lot of young folks that haven't been getting jobs coming out of college. And a 5% year over year increase in jobs for college grads is not a massive deal is not the massive deal that folks are making it out to be. So let's, I would say, move towards a more genuine focus, genuine prioritization of helping people believe they can learn anything, helping people believe they can be more powerful than whatever actual power they might physically wield themselves, intellectually wield themselves in just this one unit, which is me, my body. We want to be able to act through others, and AI makes it eminently possible for you, Bob, Mike, Sally, Jill, anybody to act through others directly through AI. It's all accessible today. And if we do that, people will be more hopeful, people will be less hopeless, and people will throw fewer Molotov cocktails into CEOs' homes.
Yeah, for sure, man. Did you see what to that story? First of all, the dude's 20 years old.
Yeah.
And apparently, he had a document on him that where he's, where he identified views opposed to artificial intelligence and the executives. So this is some kind of Skynet thing here going on, where he's just trying to be the Terminator that brings down the executive of the company so that Skynet doesn't happen or something. And in the document, it says here, also, if I am going to advocate for others to kill and commit crimes, then I must lead by example and show I am fully sincere in my message, which is, I mean, this guy's a zealot.
Yeah. He's styling himself as John Connor in Terminator, as you say. I mean, if he wanted to really be here's the irony. If he actually wanted to be capable of putting a dent in it, he would need, he's missing Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's missing his AI assistants. And that's the irony, right? In order to be that powerful, you're going to need to side with the guys that are making the AI. And that's just, it's circular. It's just wrong, because we are not in a world of finite resources. And that has been proven decade over decade, century over century, where the world economy is just simply bigger. And for much of history, a lot of that, what is it, in the 1950s, 1960s, a lot of that accrued to the benefit of the middle class. We had an explosion in wealth in the middle class. Now, where some of this pain comes from is that a lot of in the United States, or in developed nations at least, a lot of the growth in the economy has been accruing to the benefit of the ultra wealthy. And that's got a sting. It's just that to lash out now feels very counterproductive, because AI, I genuinely believe, is very, very good for the middle class. And I think it could eliminate the idea of poverty, because the same automation technologies, forget AI, right? Forget the word AI. Automation technology is bringing down the cost of a lot of things. I hate paying $50 for an Uber to get into town. It's an Uber X to get into town. I hate the idea of it. I take that same ride in Austin, Texas, it's going to be $5. Over time, that number is going to come down a little bit more. So when we think, hey, these corporate overlords or these CEOs are all just looking to jack up prices, and yeah, there was a lot of that behavior coming out of COVID, but I think that the actual function of technology is to create more abundance, and that comes from more productivity. It comes from decreased input cost, greater output benefit, and automation technology is going to bring down the cost for the people who have suffered the most.
Yeah, that's the exciting thing about what this technology brings. It affords the entrepreneurial person, or the person who is hungry to create and have some type of venture to skill stack and really have fluency in the various parts of running an enterprise like that. Whereas before, you would have had to take even if you didn't go to traditional university, you'd have to take course on course on course to be able to understand those things. Sure, I went deep and I'm a great builder developer. Who's going to market the damn thing?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
And that's just at level 1 of AI usage. How we talked about like AI as chatbot. At level 1 of AI usage, people can get smarter. Think about how they can, and Anthropic released this like feel good study on like 80,000, was it 80,000 respondents to this feel good corporate-y kind of circle jerk report on how people feel about AI. And it's a giant PR exercise. And they even cited this guy who was homeless who used AI to figure out how to start a digital marketing business, right? And that's just chatbot level experience with AI.
Sure.
Now, does that stuff happen? Yeah, sure. Like, should it happen? Is it good that it's happening? Yeah, absolutely. But I think we can be a little bit more ambitious than that. We go beyond the chatbot experience, and level 2 is the copilot. Level 3 is agentic. Level 4 is agentic swarms. Level 5 is recursive agentic swarms. And these 5 levels of AI, where 4 and 5 might be interchangeable. It's what will truly make it possible for individuals to, even if they choose not to create, even if they choose just to live a life of hedonistic consumption, it will make life so much more affordable for them to do so, right? It'll afford them the time to spend with their families. It'll afford them the time to just binge on Netflix, to put on your VR headset and like disconnect from the world if that's what you want. People who want that will be able to get that. Like that's there, and it'll be affordable for everyone to do so. I don't think that's good, but like, hey, all the power to you. Agency, remember, like agency within your body as well. If that's what you want to do, go ahead. Beyond that, though, it's gonna just free up folks to, because you look at the amount of risk that goes into, how frightening is it to start a new business or to start a new painting that you think is going to take you like a year to figure out. Any large undertaking, it's a fear response that we've built over time that's like very powerful, and we're able to manage it really well. So it's almost not noticeable, but it's there. Like the fear is a part of the experience. And a lot of it is going to get de-risked, because starting a business won't necessarily mean putting, in Korean we say papjur, the line we have to our food. It's not going to put food on the table at risk, because food on the table will be affordable enough. I mean, today, a grocery basket might be 150, 250 bucks. And so might be, what, 40% higher than it was 5 years ago? And you might be getting 30% less than 5 years ago. So I think that has to change, and automation will make that change. So people will have better food security. Physiological needs will be dramatically more accessible and reliable. And that just is a game changer when it comes to life for everybody at the baseline.
Do you think the percentage of net consumers, let's just even call it in developed nations, do you think the percentage of net consumers would decrease across time with the availability and ease of use of these tools increasing?
When you say net consumers, do you mean heads or consumption?
I mean, in terms of the number of people that net consume more than they put out or create or produce, or
so number of net consumer heads.
Yes.
Where it's like creation, creativity, consumption, people who are more consumer than they are creator. And how will we have more heads that are like that?
Or less?
I think that the answer, like the optimist in me believes that a lot of people go through even like a decades long period of being net consumers. It's like when we're learning,
Sure.
getting the semantic foundation, the knowledge foundation. That's like your K through 12 curriculum, right? I think that we can compress that down to, as we've discussed numerous times here, into like 8 or 9 years. And I believe we should. So I think that people will spend less time being net consumers by necessity, and they'll be able to pivot to being net creators earlier in their lives. Consequently, I think that people who are in a position to become net creators earlier in their lives, coupled with like extension to lifespan, it's just going to lead to, yes, objectively more heads, and as a per capita basis, more people being net creators versus net consumers. So I think we'll see the share of net consumers come down. I think this is connected to the idea of agency that we were talking about and autonomy, the ability to put others to work as well in order to achieve my ambitious goals. That is fundamental to being a net creator, I believe, to scale up your ability to create externally from my body. That's expensive and slow today, and it's becoming much more affordable because of AI. I think that we get people there earlier in their life, around the age of 16, 17. We will see more people getting hooked on it, and we will see more people becoming impactful just by virtue of running more iterations of being net creators, starting from an earlier point in life, and it'll carry through. So I believe we're going to see a lot more. Now, where I see us landing is probably in I think we're, again, sub 1% net creators today, sub 1% humans with today. I think we're going to end up very likely, like a layup might be 10% of society having greater agency and being net creators. Ideally, we get to 90%. Perfect world, we get to 100%, right?
Sure.
There are going to be people who just like decide, hey, you know what? I just want to watch the sunset every day. That's it. That makes me happy. I want to meditate on a cliff for days on end, and that brings me happiness. I want to reconnect with the everything. I want to connect with the universe. There'll be people who choose that. I would like to I deeply believe that we as a species will gravitate more towards being together and being productive together, because it's just, it feels so damn good to create something greater than me, outside of me, together with others. It's a wonderful feeling. And so I think 10% is the layup, 90% is the ambitious goal. It leaves room for the 10%, the other 10% to become Zen Buddhists and do as they do, or to become hedonists. It just leaves a lot of room for folks to just be more human.
Yes.
What do you think? Do you think we're going to end up with more net consumers or more net creators?
I think more. I agree with you in terms of the fact that there, just like anything, there's going to be a distribution curve. Right? The distribution curve is just so locked into the physics of our world in a lot of ways. I don't know if I'd go so far as to, my brain has trouble envisioning 100% or like even high 90s where everyone produces. I've been lucky enough to have gone through something very similar in the industry that I used to be in, which is filmmaking. At one point, filmmaking was reserved for large studios, either for movie making, television, or TV commercials.
And then the Blair Witch Project happened.
Sure. Absolutely. And also YouTube happened. YouTube was a platform that was ridiculed for years because it was YouTube Vimeo. And Vimeo was always seen as the proper artist's platform. Yep. And for everyone in our game, put their dollars, would bet on Vimeo being the thing they went for, because it was YouTube was a cat video platform. And it was for the people that had, the Nokias that could record video and all that and put up videos like that. And then the 5D Mark II came out, the Canon 5D Mark II, which
making quality cinematography accessible to many people.
Absolutely, which could manage to cram a sensor into an SLR form factor. And that was also around the same time when film was transitioning to digital. And film was not only cost prohibitive because of the price of the film camera, it was cost prohibitive because for every foot of footage, every foot of film that you're running through, if you mess up that take, yeah, absolutely, right? It's not a laser gun, it's real bullets. If you hit record, you're just running through, and there was a real cost to that. So then came the 5D Mark II.
That real cost, like with these big film reels, they weren't cheap. But when you say real cost,
absolutely.
Like, what were
absolutely.
they? thousands of dollars.
I completely forget because I was just working in the camera. I didn't have to like, let's see.
But then like
Kodak.
not only like are you paying for the film itself, maybe hundreds of dollars, you're also paying for the time of all the people that are there to make it possible when they're using all of that very advanced equipment.
And by the way, all it would take was just for the camera assistant to accidentally leak some light into the canister.
Yes.
And you're
Overexpose it.
Yeah. You're fucked. The whole day of filming's gone, right?
Yep.
So, okay.
I heard something from Chris. Oh, go ahead. Yeah. Let's hear this first.
To answer your question, based on 2026 market data, 35 mil motion picture film, so cinema stock, 350 to 550 Aussie dollars for 400 feet of like a reel.
Yeah. So you're paying hundreds of dollars per reel, and that's real money. And on top of that, I saw an interview from Chris Pratt recently, in his role as Star-Lord, where he was dancing, right? And he told the director, like, hey, I need a choreographer to help me with this because I don't know how to dance. And the director said, no, just run with it. Just do it. And he's thinking, all these extras are here, all these actors, all the people running equipment. If I screw this up, this is money. This is a lot of money.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And so back in our industry, when that happened, all the incumbents were saying, oh my God, this is over. Everyone's going to kind of come in and just butcher our industry. So this isn't Hollywood's like kind of first go at this, right?
Yeah.
And they're railing hard now against AI, but that happened to film crews back then. And, you know, at some point, everyone was armed with a very high fidelity camera in their pocket because of iPhones and smartphones and stuff like that. And if you look at the distribution curve, not everyone's making movies.
Yeah.
The technology is absolutely available. The tools are there. Lighting is cheaper than ever. Audio equipment is as affordable as ever. Not everyone's making movies. Most are still.
But are more people making movies?
Yes, and that's the thing. It armed the individuals with the will, but not the means. It armed the individuals with the will, but not the means to be able to get to that place. Much in the same way right now,
maybe it's
AI
not like
imagery.
The same place, but it's close enough.
Close enough that I can have
you can
Asian
appreciate
Matrix.
some of the other things. Yes. Asian
right?
Neo.
Back then I had the will, but not the means. Now the means was one weekend and a bunch of voice prompting with one of those voice to text things, and that is very that is very doable. So that's where, to answer to a very long way of answering your question around the distribution curve, the ones with the will but not the means will be leaning in and capitalizing on that. I guess my core question though is how much of what will happen to the ones who don't have the will, even though they might have the means, and what percentage of those would get lured over enough to go, ooh, this party seems like a fun one, I'm also going to jump in, and what percentage of them would just go, nifty, but I'll just kind of wait and see. I'll just leave it to the powers that be. They need to do something. They need to ban AI. They need to throttle this thing. They need to start educating us, and in the meantime, I'm just going to wait.
Yeah, that's the point you make is real, and I think that the delta here, like where we're going to see the biggest change, or the biggest opportunity for change, isn't in simply making the tools accessible to those who have the will. It's not just about giving the means to those who have the will. It's about affecting the people who even lack the will. It's about affecting the people who are choosing or hooked on hedonism, or who have kind of given up, who are just like, woe's I, like, that's what the guys in positions of power do. That's like what the smart people do. That's not for me.
And see,
it's
David,
this group that is probably like 90-something% of people today.
But here's my contention, right? On the one hand, so I call it potatoism. Like being a couch potato is extremely easy. It's so easy to be a couch potato, right? That's why I call it potatoism. And if we look at the setup right now, like what you were positing before, the cost to consumer will only come down. The cost of, and let's paint a picture of Mr. Couch Potato here. the cost of entertainment and the availability and the variety of entertainment is going to increase, right? So the cost of entertainment is going to come down, the availability and the variety is going to increase. The cost of all the different types of artificially flavored foods in the high salt, high sugar, yum stuff is going to come down. All that's going to come down. And so then does that cause the will to actually diminish? Because now I've got everything I need. Sure, we've got the Zen monks who want to go do that on the side. However, is the setup now even more perfect for me to be a couch potato? Because, hey, guess what? Cheaper, relatively cheaper, right? For me as well. So
well, look at
that's where my brain goes.
The obesity epidemic in the US, where these heavily processed foods are so cheap. Like, it's cheaper to get a Coke than it is to get water. It's cheaper to get a bag of chips than it is to get a
like an apple or some shit.
good proteins, or an apple, right? It's definitely cheaper to get a bag of chips than it is to get an apple. So then you end up with this obesity epidemic. You go to a Five Guys and you want to get a water. It's more expensive than it is to get a Coke.
That's wild.
Right? And the water is not a free refill. The Coke might be a free refill.
That's wild.
So when the point that you're making is sound in many ways, but and a perfect visualization of this might be for folks who have read Ready Player One or seen the movie Ready Player One. It's a movie about people who have these VR headsets, right? And they can live in these metaverse worlds in their VR headsets. And these are amazing worlds that feel so real. And there's the techno-utopian view of education where it's like you've got the world's best teachers who are teaching you in VR. And so you've got all these kids with these masks on their faces. And my God, I think that would be dystopian, right? Because you're actually beaming it directly into their eyes, right? Which is probably the highest throughput path to the brain. And you're just beaming a proxy for reality into their brains through their eyes. It really is lasers into the brain. So if that's happening, we end up with the scene from the book, and I can't remember if it's in the movie or not, but it hit me hard in the book, where you had this guy in a VR, like it's a zero gravity seat with a bunch of sensors or sensory inputs into the body, like a VR mask on, and it's just this morbidly obese person, maybe like your spine connected to it. Like, that is disgusting. The idea that people will just let themselves go. And this is freeing up people's time, making the physiological necessities affordable. And yeah, the stack that goes on top of it, the entertainment layer, the consumption layer for like even hedonism, like heck, I've gone out and had a binge drinking session, or like gone to a buffet and like stuffed my face. And sure, like sometimes it's in moderation, sure. Jumbo shrimp level oxymoron there. But yeah, in moderation, hedonism is okay, I guess. Like, have a taste of it, but don't make it your life. And I have to believe that the majority of humans, if we're not as a species generally wired to overcome those baser instincts, then maybe we don't deserve to thrive as a species. But
sure.
I think we actually are intellectually wired to overcome that. Now, what then needs to happen? What needs to happen is we need to stop telling these lies to young people that strip them of their agency. These lies to young people that tell them, hey, like, these guys are supposed to be the kings of industry, the titans of industry. These guys are going to run the country. You guys over here, like the majority of you guys are the peons, the automatons, the bots, the NPCs, the lemmings, the subhumans.
Well, you guys are the product.
Right? That's what you guys are. So we're going to beat the autonomy out of you. We're going to beat the ambition out of you. And we're going to install a certain flavor of ambition that works towards this goal that is capped, but is useful to the people in power. I think we need to shut that down pretty quickly. And that's your K through 12 education system. It needs to be, for most people, it's not ambitious enough. It's not ambitious enough. It is not honest enough. It's not even mid. It's something else. It's a terrible lie. No, that's That doesn't mean that I don't believe in imparting semantic knowledge. I think that there is a lot of like it's the humanities last exam stuff. Like let's go cross-disciplinary. Let's be even more ambitious about imparting semantic knowledge, and it just as a species, there are things that we need to know, and we want as many people as possible to know a fairly broad set of this, or at least understand at a surface level these concepts in order to ensure our viability as a species. Like say something terrible happens and we get knocked down to 100 people on Earth. Will we be able to figure out energy generation? Will we be able to figure out clean water? Will we be able to figure out how to build reliable structures? Like all this stuff. Will we be able to figure out how to create moving vehicles again, locomotion? Will we be able to figure out how to affect our biology to address disease that might strike, or how to ensure, will we understand what kinds of crops need to be grown at what times of year in which regions? All this, and will we understand how it affects our bodies? And these are the things that, yeah, we need to teach our young people about. But that can all be done much more ambitiously than the K through 12 education system, and it can be done in much less time. If we do that, we're going to have more net creators than net consumers.
Yeah. I mean, in a lot of ways already it's starting, you know, I forget where I heard this survey being done where a bunch of teenagers were asked, you know, what do you want to do when you finish school? And for them, net creators, because, you know, you tend to want to be what you can see, they wanted to be YouTubers. So I think in some way already that it's shifting in that type of a way, just because the creator economy was the wave that came before, and that's what they can see a lot more of. So, you know, so I think in a way that shift is happening. And then meanwhile, on the other side, again, back to the powers that be, you've got countries like the one I'm living in where they completely banned social media for under 16-year-olds. It's still in effect right now. Studies are showing, like, starting to come up, that it is ineffective. But yeah, it's the future looks very uncertain, not in a bad way. Just it's not status quo anymore. It's not same, but slightly different. Just some type of small incremental change. This is a real big step change that's going to occur. But the fact that it's going to be more affordable for consumers to consume, number one, and then number two, looking at what affordability for consumers has done to most developed Western nations is concerning to me. That's all. That's right. That's all I'm saying.
I think that's more of a commentary on how much more human we should aspire to be. You mentioned how a lot of young folks are talking about wanting to become YouTube creators. And when I talk about creativity and being net creators, for the most part, I want to make sure that I'm being careful to not conflate that with, or create room for it to be conflated with, the idea of YouTube creators, because I think that most YouTube creators are actually creating slop. And it's a slop that does well, right? But there is great utility in, like, you think about an elite athlete or somebody who is interested in becoming an athlete, and they might see on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube a highlight reel of an athlete doing something incredible. And now what have you just done? You've planted the idea in the mind of the child that this feat of incredible athleticism is possible. So there's immense good in social media. So I think that this Australian government move to ban under 16s from using social media, I see where they're coming from, and I agree with where they're coming from. I think that the actual mechanism is not. It's like they're taking the easy path. The harder path is actually finding a way to instill in the majority of students an actual genuine desire and an interest to live, to engage with the world. And if we do that, then I think that we'll have more healthier uses of YouTube, social media, all this stuff. We'll have less people scrolling through brain rot and more people interested in, and even that, like, you don't want somebody just scrolling through highlight reels nonstop, right? Like that's, but what time they do spend on social media will be healthier. They'll be less evil to each other, because kids can be evil to each other in some cases. If we're genuinely instilling a curiosity and interest in building into the minds and the souls of our young people, I think we can trust them to use their time on social media a little bit more productively. or less in a less damaging way.
Yeah, for sure. The rest of this year, I say this so many times on every time we get together, the rest of this year is going to be fascinating. The next 3 years is going to be even more fascinating.
Yeah, buckle up, because it is like every day, especially from Anthropic, bomb after bomb after bomb they're dropping. The rate of change has become violent and persistently faster, markedly faster than what folks are able to wrap their heads around. And I think that it's going to get dizzying very soon. Right now is going to feel like slow motion, because the rate of change is exponential. Like, we're going to hit this wall where suddenly it's something as, and today I think they're talking about these large world models versus these large language models. And if we think about large language models as a primitive version of the automation technologies and the automation enabling technologies, even with what just might be a primitive version, it's going to be enough, I think, to fundamentally change the social contract and the aspirations that we have as a species. Because really, too many people have been economically coerced, trapped into jobs that really were dehumanizing.
Yeah.
So it's a chance for us to be a lot more aspirational as a species. Those days are here today. And it doesn't come from less use of AI. I think it comes from smarter uses of AI.
Love that. Love that. What a bar to land the plane.